Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in just a little bit. Welcome to the webinar if you've just joined us. And Tom Mower Sr. will be joining us here in just a minute or two. I'm super excited. We're going to be talking about important things like how to prevent this new virus. It seems to be making news everywhere. There's people dying from it. It's not good. It's not good. So Tom should be with us in just a little bit. It looks like it's the bottom of the hour, so I really want to get started. When Tom joins us, I will bring him onto the panel to speak so you can all see the mastermind behind everything that we have going on. My name is Dr. Kurt Fisnick. Welcome, everyone. And today, I wanted to spend some time talking about the importance of really, I compare, not that I surf, I've never surfed in my life. I mean, I live in North Dakota. We don't have waves. We don't really have any water. Well, we do. It's frozen. So anyhow, I just want to say that I like to compare it to surfing, because from what I've seen with surfing, from my friends that do surf, when my son lived over in Hawaii, you really want to get on that wave, because when you get in front of the wave, it's going to push you along. It's going to push you along. If you come in after the wave has gone by and you jump back here, you jump on the wave, yeah, you're going to ride the wave, but the real energy is up here in front. Does that make sense to everyone? And I hope that you're all saying yes. Raise your hand and tell me that makes total sense. If you're watching this on Facebook, give us the thumbs up and just let us know that you got that. There you go. You guys are all raising your hand. It makes sense, doesn't it? And so the thing is that hang on one second. I close the chat so I can see when Tom comes into the room. So the thing is that right now, as we're watching Sisel grow, we've just got this tremendous growth that's coming in. We're watching people as they're moving in front of the wave. Hang on one second. I'm going to bring Katie onto the panel. She just joined us. Katie, you can unmute yourself there. Andrea, I'm going to move you over onto the panel as well. We don't have Tom here yet. There we go. Hello, Andrea.
Hi.
Hello, Katie. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. I hope you two are doing well as well.
Excellent. I am.
I was just talking about and you probably heard me talking about the importance of catching a wave and getting on it when the momentum is really there. And I really feel with what we have going on with Sisel right now, it's a great time to actually talk about that. I mean, both of you would have to agree that you can't go anywhere without talking about seeing something that's mentioning getting younger, feeling younger, acting younger, right?
Definitely.
Right.
I mean,
we have a whole generation of people that want to do that.
Yeah, the baby boomer population really is driving the market, and I'm on the bottom end of it. I know, Andrea, you're kind of in the bottom end with me as as far as the baby boomer population. Katie, you're too young, but but you're not in the baby boomer population. But when you look at the baby boomer population, they've driven the first $2 trillion industries. And the first $1 trillion industry was the automobile industry. Our generation We wanted our cars. We wanted our own cars. We all had to have a car. And it drove the first $1 trillion a year industry, the automobile industry. And then when the personal computers came out, you know, when Apple introduced their first computer, which I just saw today. Today was the anniversary of when they launched their first computer.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, the first home-based computer. And I remember those. I remember them. We got one. I still have one. It's probably still in the box because I mean, it was just a mess to put it all together. But they're saying now, if you listen to Paul Pilzer, you know who he is? Katie, do you know who he is?
Yeah. Yep.
Andrea, no? So
No.
Paul Zane Pilzer he's a world renowned economist. He actually worked on the economy with, I think he was there, helped out during some of the work with Reaganomics. I think he was there with George #1. I don't know if he was if he was helping much with the Clinton administration or George W. or anything after that. But really, Paul Zane Pilzer, he's written books on it, and he said the next $1 trillion industry was going to be the anti-aging industry.
Yeah.
I believe.
And Aubrey de Grey, who's, you know, a world-renowned expert in aging, he said that it's only a matter of time before the governments catch on and then they officially declare a war on aging, and everyone's going to be jumping on the bandwagon. So
Right. I was just texting Tom to see where he's at. But yeah, exactly. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, and you look at people your age, you know, Katie, you're just, you know, another generation below me. And really, does anybody your age want to get any older any faster?
no, to speaking to a lady the other day, and she said, "Oh, I'm freaking out. I just turned 40, and now I'm like, you know, worried about getting older, and I need to do everything I can." And I said, "Yeah." And I mean, for me, I was worrying about getting older at 26 because, you know, my dad got sick at 54. He was in a nursing home with 80-year-olds at the age of. He got sick at 54. He was in the nursing home by 56. Seeing a 56-year-old sitting with 80-year-olds, something very wrong with that picture. So who wants to get old? Certainly you don't want to get age-related diseases. And even though he wasn't old, it was still an age-related disease. You know, it came on around that age, which can be, you know, a time period for people when they do tend to get something. So, yeah, I think people should, and I can't imagine why they wouldn't want to do everything they can to look after their health.
Yeah. Can you two keep discussing? I got to send Tom the link.
Yeah, I was going to say, Katie, you have such a huge advantage over me because I'm like 20 years older than you. So I wish that I had found what we have available to us today 20 years ago. That would have been amazing to me.
Yeah. Wow. And that's a great conversation to have with someone new, Andrea, when you talk them, is to say that, you know, I wish I knew what I knew now 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine how much more, you know, you'd be able to help yourself. And I just think at least informing people, letting them be informed, and then they can make a decision. You know, the thing is, then they can't say, well, they didn't know about it. So I like that word, being informed. I think it catches a lot of people's attention because, you know, when you hear people say, for instance, get sick because they got exposed to something like Roundup or whatever, they say, you know, I wish we were informed. Like, we should have been informed that it could be dangerous, or you could have done this or could have done that. So I guess that's part of our mission too, is to spread the Mower mission, to spread and to educate and empower people to make those decisions to improve their lives. It's just so important.
Yes, I agree with you. That's what we try to do every day,
Hey, Tom.
right?
Hello.
Tom just joined us, and Tom, I'll bring you up to speed to what we were talking about. We were just talking about how the anti-aging industry is really, it's the third $1 trillion industry, which was driven by the baby boomers, the people, you know, our age, that we just don't want to get old. And according to Paul Zane Pilzer, you know, the first $1 trillion industry being the automobile, and then the computer industry, and now the anti-aging industry. And really, like I was saying when the call first started, I mean, right now, if you could think of it as a wave coming by, we're right here, we're in front of the wave, and with Sisel, we can ride that wave. Or if we wait and we don't jump in front of it, we're on top of it, we're behind it, and we're still going to feel some of the momentum, some of the effects, but we're not going to catch the energy like we would if we got started right now, right?
Well, correct. You hear me okay?
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Well, yeah, there are things that come in a wave in many new products and different things like that. If you, we're in the network marketing industry, and it's probably one of the most profound industries for having products sweep through. They come from out of nowhere, become gigantic, and then they're gone. Sometimes they stay to a degree. If you look at some of the products that are being sold out in the market, at one time, oil of melaleuca was quite popular, but you know, everybody has it now, and it wasn't everything said, but it was new. It's from Australia, you know, their tea tree. And so it sounded exotic. And so people jumped on it. Well, then along comes noni. Well, noni sounds very exotic too, comes from Tahiti or some other places, but it was hardly an effective product. In fact, they went into $1 billion company a number of years ago and collapsed now to where they're very small with it. Look at Zango with mangosteen juice. It came in and their advertising was, this is what Queen Victoria said after she tasted it: I want to eat this for the rest of my life. But the University of Adelaide down in Australia tested it and said apple juice is a lot more powerful than mangosteen juice is, and it went. And so down went Zango with it. And so you see these, and there's lots of others, in and out, in and out, in and out. The consistent thing that you need to be doing, which you never see a company do, they usually hit it once, or a one-hit wonder, kind of like some of those singers. They have one major recording, and then they don't for the rest of their life, and they're a one-hit wonder. But with Sisel, what we have to do, which we do, and I like doing it too, that's the nice thing about it, is I keep up with everything. It takes an intensive amount of work to do that, in research, thinking these things out, I have a team that works for me to obtain information and all of that. And so what I'm trying to do is to catch any wave that's coming along, but also to create my own. And I've been able to do that numbers of times with a number of products. And I don't know of another company that ever has been able to do that, but I've done it, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 times in my life with my previous company and this one. And I'm sure 10. But right now we're on a big wave, and it has to do with we're far beyond those things that we used to talk about. When I first started in the business, people were talking about trying to push vitamins, and there were a lot of Dr. Shackley and places like that had these vitamins out. They're supposed to be superior in some ways, and people were pretty well caught up in it because that's all they knew. So anyway, as things progressed, and then there's the movement come out from big pharma and said, "Oh, you don't need vitamins because you're getting enough in the food that you eat," and that's been debunked. But they're still making the claim. I saw them make that claim here about 3 or 4 months ago. So if you're deficient, I mean, how about scurvy? That's a deficiency, isn't it? And that's why the Brits were all called limeys, because they ate lime, because they were nutritionally deficient on it when they're sailing in ships of those days, and it would cure and correct it. So that simple thing right there just throws water all over that. But then we look at people, and if they don't get enough calcium and minerals, they don't build strong bones. If you don't get enough protein, you don't build good muscle with it. All of those things are very important, and we've learned those, and they are waves of the past. And you gotta get on that the crest of that wave and ride it in. So where it went from there, then it went to, oh, here's things that are aging you. So here's an antioxidant a sensational one that no one's ever heard about. Mona V from had the acai berry from Brazil. Well, it was a decent berry, but you know, and become a billion-dollar company. Why? Because they did it right. They had an okay product. It was hardly sensational. It was one with a couple of sub-ingredients. And as a consequence, they were superb marketers, and people built fortunes off that. Not because necessarily, the product was unusual enough, bizarre, this berry that had existed for thousands of years of use, and then it was brought out, and then suddenly, the way it goes, because big, powerful marketers knew how to do it, and they sold the business opportunity. And that's the way it is with all of these. You know, you look at Zango and mangosteen, supposed to be powerful antioxidant and things like that's not. Now those companies are completely out of business, and yet they got so large. So how did they do it? I just recapped that. They did it because they sold the business opportunity. People are more interested in making money than they are in the products they sell, but the products are a key ingredient to that. Our best product is the business opportunity. Nothing else comes even close to that. But as this thing evolved from antioxidants, then you said, well, okay, we can neutralize factors that are aging. And then we went into a series of precursors and prohormones and things like that to increase longevity, and some other ingredients that came along. And you've seen things like pycnogenol, which was there, and OPCs. All of those things came in and had their own big wave, and then out, and you don't see them again. They're probably around with that kind of thing, but nonetheless, it just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls. But then they got to the point where they said, okay, we can increase longevity, and that stuck for a long time. There was a couple, Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, they wrote a book about life extension, and out of that, it really opened a lot of people's eyes to it. So what I did I looked at that with early when I was into Chinese medicine because I got started, and I actually started with a hair grower. Then I found a discovery came from China that in the 1980s, and had just been discovered in a Ming Dynasty emperor's tomb, and a number of formulas used some of the components in it, but they said it greatly extends the lifespan. And so that threw my whole idea over into that. So as I looked at it, it was a sexy story, so to speak, and exciting, and people really jumped on it. And so I brought out a couple of products like that. Now, little did I know at that time, the ingredient that I found had within it some ingredients that would be precursors to and support the production of NAD+, which is now, that takes us to a whole different dimension. We also knew a lot about toxins, and I, from 35 years ago, was campaigning about the best thing in our products is what's not in it. And because we don't use any of the potentially harmful ingredients. Why? Because they're potentially harmful. We understand that. If you watch my publication on Facebook this week, Tylenol is now being classified as a carcinogen, and it's the most commonly prescribed pain medication there is in the world. Well, I knew that many, many years ago. And the one thing it does, it causes liver cancer. And I was taking a product, some of you will probably know it, called Excedrin, because I had an injury that was with me on my ankle from an accident that happened a while. And so I would take it every day. And when the pain would get up and the swelling would get up, I would take it. But it contained a caffeine, it had an aspirin, and it had Tylenol in it. And so I remember one day I went in and the doctor, and they did a blood test on me for whatever reasons it was, I can't remember. But nonetheless, it came back and they said, oh, you have an abnormal enzyme being produced in your liver. And it was odd enough it stood up, but they didn't know what it did. So I kept that in mind, that something was out of whack, but nobody could tell me what it was. And then a few years later, I came across a study where it showed that it could cause liver damage and cancer. The potential was there. So I went back in, had my blood tested again for another thing. I was going to have a little surgery, and they said, "Oh yeah, you got this liver enzyme that's way out of whack, and it's a carcinogen." Well, I had known that, but I'd gone off my product, and over a period of time, not too long, it cleared up, and plus I was taking ingredients that were specific for supporting my liver that were anti-carcinogenic in nature with what they did, and they had a lot of regenerative support. So all of that I threw in, and what specific was. So I went in for my test after a period of time, and it was gone. So I feel pretty good about that, unless I get a big lump growing in there. But that's the thing about nutrition. See, there are so many different aspects of it, and they come and they go. And probiotics has been big recently down in Australia, and that was 30 years ago. That was really popular. Look at aloe. Aloe just raged in the 70s and 80s, still around, but hardly anything to write home about. So these things really come and change, but I progressively moved along with all of those, keeping on the forefront, sometimes bringing out things that no one has ever seen before. Revolutionary a number of times. Other times, maybe some people had seen it, but nobody had moved on it. Nobody economically were able to make it at a reasonable price. So I built the product, I didn't buy it from other companies. We make products for lots of MLMs here. In our plant, we have a plant called Supernaturals, and we make them. I have all the products that we make. There's only one that I would even consider adding, if I could put it, which I don't care that much anyway, into the Sisel line, and it's a cough syrup. And so the rest of them, I look at the formulation, I just say, oh, insignificant, worthless, nothing there. And then you have suppliers come in and say, we want to have a product that's toxin free. Okay, what do you use for preservatives? They say, well, we're going to use parabens. Well, parabens aren't toxic free. They cause breast cancer and other types of cancers. And they tell us, and this has happened several occasions, they say, oh, we've made a supplier agreement with the supplier. There's the raw material, the surfactant, the detergent, or some of them that goes in it. And they say they've loaded it with parabens. And the way the law reads is, if the factory that makes it loads it with parabens to preserve it, when you get the ingredient, all you have to put on your label is the ingredient. You don't have to put that it has parabens in it unless you add it yourself. So you see how things can be manipulated around. But I will tell you one thing from my standpoint, even though I'm building products for other people's company, I've always refused to do that because I thought it was so dishonest and immoral. But I wanted to keep that kind of thing going. It's the way I believe, and I have strong convictions on it. And so with the no harmful ingredients, we rode that for a long time. I was the voice crying in the wilderness. I got sued by some of the biggest companies in the world, and I never backed down. And they never, after we had depositions and they got the information, I never got taken to court because they knew I would shred them in court. And I had scientific people from the field, like the head of the Cancer Prevention Coalition. He wrote 3 books on me and what I had done in this. He said, you've done more to help prevent cancer than I have, and I'm head of the Cancer Prevention Coalition. And well, it was right, because he didn't have the platform to run on. I did with the network, because the power of network marketing is you. You're the most important component of it, and I realized that. So I put this message out, and we went down, and I never quit. I wouldn't back down from anything. So then we got into the point where, oh, gee, it looks like, and this is just the last few years, within perhaps the last 3 years or so, we knew we could now greatly extend lifespan with resveratrol when it came out, and we made our eternity with it. We knew that the body was deficient in 74 essential trace minerals, and it doesn't have enough antioxidants for all the free radicals are attacking. So we made Spectromax with that. We know the immunity gets so dulled down as you get older that even though it's there and it's functioning, it's putting out molecules, T cells and macrophages, things of that nature, killer K cells, that are dumbed down. They have been genetically mutated enough or oxidized that they no longer can recognize a germ or a fungus, yeast, mold, virus, or even a cancer cell, which they're supposed to be going after too, and they are doing it. So you bring in fucoidan. What does fucoidan does? It feeds the system so that it brings itself up to an optimal level. And the Chinese called it virgin mother's milk, the ingredient, because they knew it brought the immunity of the body up within a week to that of a newborn baby. But this isn't something new they did. They've known that and said it for thousands of years, long before electricity and the microscope. So there was a lot of ancient science there that very important, and we moved on it. So I had I had the triangle of life with those three, and sensational breakthroughs. We still would be growing off those, but along comes new discoveries. And so some we've gone into and some haven't worked out so well because of various factors of what they are, or distributing or marketing, or some company is sweeping through with their state-of-the-art product. You remember the ingredient instantly ages, so you put it on your wrinkles and they would constrict. All it was sodium silicate, which is liquid glass. And so when it went onto the skin, then it would constrict and come together and pull it. We tried to get around that and do it right, and made a product called Intrepid. But to do it right, not be toxic, I gave up on it because I couldn't, the technology was not good enough to do it. And I was competing against this product that only lasts a couple of hours. And then you look like a zombie as your skin started getting irritated and all that kind of stuff. So that was one we didn't win on, and we put a lot of effort in it. Are we done? No, now I think I know how to do it. So down the road, we'll do it again because we think we can put something on. It'll just like be it's just pull everything out, just almost like a facelift in the bottle for doing it, easy to get it on. And those are things we're working on because I like working. I like doing these things, creating these new products. But then along came this major discovery, which came from a big university. And perhaps to define things a little bit for some of you folks that are there, these universities are very well known. And some of the people that are in them are very high profile because they're out trying to raise money to produce a new drug. And it's just like with resveratrol. When that was discovered, GlaxoSmithKline came into this major university research center, and they paid them $730 million to have the rights to all the studies they could, so that they could take it on and make a drug out of it, a life extension drug. And you had one of the head research, very famous guy, brilliant person. He was going around saying, yeah, now you can live to be 120. Maybe you could do 150. And they talked about the sirtuin genes and things like that. So anyway, GlaxoSmithKline looked at this, and it was just really enticing, but they couldn't make a synthetic molecule out of it to mimic it. And they tried and then finally gave up after they were going over the $1 billion mark. And there's a whole thing, $1 billion spent, all those years of research, and collapsed because in big pharma, they don't want to sell a natural ingredient because they're too costly in pharmaceuticals. And here within the natural market of nutraceuticals, you can make it for a fraction of what they do, but it takes about 13 years on average to get a new drug approval, and costs $1 to $2 billion to do it. So you don't want economically, it isn't feasible for them to do that because of the costs that are involved. But here we are, we discovered the science that they have found, and I can go to the sources, or I can get extracts made in many cases, and I can bring it out. So voila, we have eternity with resveratrol in it, which is not very bioabsorbable. Taking this, so you can take it, but it gets destroyed in the stomach, and it's not very bioabsorbable. Okay, I'll solve that, which I did. And no one else, they're looking at it, and they have such tunnel vision, and I'm looking all the way across through the same because I want to deliver what the ingredients that I want in the most effective ways of doing it. So now we have a highly absorbable one. The stomach can't destroy it, and it's destroyed by light, by heat, and so you have those and oxygen. And so when we make the product, we make it in the dark, really. Put the ingredients in the dark, and oxygen is a problem. It's everywhere. So we pump it out and fill the tank with nitrogen. And so then that displaces the oxygen. And then we build it in a cold field, not a high temperature. And so when it comes out, it gets packed in a special label, special bottle that protects the the insides from the damaging UV rays that come through that break it down, and you've got a product. And look at all those things we've done to make that one so good, and it's a great product. But then beyond that, here researchers come out, and one of them who'd been pursuing this resveratrol was seeing that it activated what they call sirtuin genes. Those are the genes that really grow. You've got about 7 of them in your body, and they just get flipped on. But when you get older, some of them start switching off, and then some of them get to the point of where they're just not viable, and your body's not producing enough to do it. They work great when you're young, but their functionality goes down. So they started looking at them and trying to decide what are the purposes. They knew resveratrol was working on a couple of them, and perhaps a little bit on some of the other 5. But what's the purpose of them all? So they put a lot of research, billions of dollars into this, and they discovered what the key to it when you're young was NAD plus. The plus stands for a hydrogen molecule. It's attached to the NAD molecule. So then they came out and they had huge release on this thing. And I believe they had 7 Nobel Prize winners endorsing this technology. And they said, this is the immortality molecule. And I didn't believe that, but I thought, yeah, I saw what the potential was. I wasn't demeaning the product. It's just that it's not a one size fits all. There isn't a magic bullet. I've learned that. And so I thought, if you're going to do something like that, and if it addresses stem cells, which is what it does, and it can, stem cells get very low on NAD as you get older, because you get a lot of wear and tear in the cell, a lot of plaque buildup, a lot of cellular garbage that accumulates, and many of the organella within the stem cell organism itself, they get oxidized, just like copper penny will darken with oxidation that happens within the cells. So the production goes down. They start shriveling up. Even the nucleus shrivels up, and their ability, which is running high when you're growing, starts falling off. And the longer you live, the faster it falls off. Now, out of that, I took a look at it, and what are the basic reasons? If the stem cell is really the master cell of the body. At one time, you were only a stem cell at conception. And out of that, you produce the 40 trillion different cells that make up your body. But along the way, the stem cells also had to create cousins to them, other types of stem cells, because there are so many facets of our body to take care of. So they make about 220 different types of stem cells throughout your whole body. 67 reside right in your brain. And so they make all of those because they have to produce the cells that wear out. Your skin cells only last a month or 2 or 3, and they're gone. Stomach cells in the stomach, 10 days or so, they're pretty well gone. They're in such a tremendous acidic environment, they just have to be rotated all the time. Yet things in the heart, and that can last 3 to 5 years, and all of those factors there. Some places are much more vulnerable to decay, like the brain, because it only weighs a little over 1% of your body weight, but it uses 30% of your oxygen. And that's because there's so many calculations going on with it. So oxygen oxidizes. Well, that's what it's used for. It's not that it has to breathe, it has to oxidize fuel. And that fuel is glucose. And so just like a car engine, you have gasoline come in, oxygen, a spark ignites it and creates the energy that runs the car. Same principle in stem cells, or even in replacement cells that it produces. Now, the difference between stem cells and replacement cells, the stem cells have telomeres. It's like tips on your finger. And every time it's going to build a new cell, it sends out the weave, the mold, and then it builds it, and then they separate. So when that does, there's less telomeres now left than there was. And so its duplication rate starts to slow down. And depending on the length of the telomeres is how quickly that the body will regenerate a new stem cell. So at first, when you're young, it's just going like crazy, and then it starts slowing down. And when you get to Kurt's age, it's just like that. So anyway, it deteriorates so much that your cell output, you had a stem cell that would put out, maybe in a period of time, and I can't remember the period. I've got to get the stats down on that again. I've had it in my mind, but I need to write it down so I can refresh it. But over a period of time when you're younger, you might be making around 500 different stem cells within a day. Every day, you make 500 of them that are replacing it. But as you get older, you get down in your 60s and 70s, you're making about 20 instead of 500. So you can see why deterioration has gone so much, why people become emaciated, muscle wasting, all of those types of things happening simply because they're not producing enough cells to replace the ones that are being used. Not that they couldn't if they were young stem cells, but they're not. And so they're in a state of decline. It's called senescence. But when they get down to a certain point, they no longer can function. They become dormant, not dead, but dormant. And now they're in senescent. It's a dormant stem cell. That's a very dangerous time because they turn from creating life to emitting huge toxins, the very worst, and especially ROS types of that is the major factor for most cancers, diseases, aging, all of those types of things. So why is something that was really creating life, replacing your cell, now such a deadly hazard? Well, it's because you have, when you're young, you have a broad range of stem cells in your body all functioning. They start going down, and as it does, it declines and the rate's going down, and pretty soon you have a certain activity level. Back here, these are all dormant senescent stem cells. And so they're not producing anything except toxins because they believe it's because they're trying to identify themselves to the immune system. So they'll come in and through a system called apoptosis, they will trigger cellular suicide. The cell will die because the immune system has come in, or a compound has come in, a phenolic agent that you have that will come in, and it will be what's necessary that the cell needs to be able to trigger apoptosis. So then the stem cell, what does it do? That dormant stem cell that's deadly, that's causing you to age faster, it's causing most of your diseases, gone. But it is gone. But that which created it, like a little polyp, will push up a new stem cell, and now you'll be replacing these old dormant ones with ones that are new and young, and so that narrow field will start to expand if you can get rid of those dormant stem cells. But the ones that are going down can be brought back, and no matter where you're at. But you know, if you're 70, you're probably down to 2 to 5% stem cell activity from where you were. So you can't do a lot because you've lost so many stem cells. But you can bring the biological factors back on those to about where you're in your 20s again. So that what you have running, instead of running down here, now can run up here like when you're young. So the mission that we're looking on this thing is, how do you go into a stem cell? How do you address the problems that are causing it to age, deteriorate, and how do you clean it up? How does it repair itself? There's a lot of damage in it, but we find out through the DNA it has all of the abilities to do that. The key to it is it takes nutrients to do that with, and it's just like building a house. You're going to build a house, you're going to electrical wire, plumbing, wallboard, carpet, wood, shingles, glass, everything, and then you build a house. It's the same thing with a stem cell. So with that, those things are getting damaged, deteriorated. But if you can go in and you can remove, there gets to be a film like plaque on your teeth from all that oxidation that's taking place. That's also one of the reasons that in brain cells you're getting so much damage, and you go into dementia. Everyone's going to get dementia. I'm not, and I know Doc's not, and some of you others, Andrea, she's not, because and Katie, and can go on not, but because you know what can be done about it. It doesn't have to happen. It's going to happen unless you do something about it. We know what the brain needs so that its own mechanism can function, and you can restore through this support mechanism of nutraceuticals, which are actually natural complementary medicines of immense power. The other thing that's so good to know about those is that they are the right molecule. The body will accept them. This is why when they make a synthetic molecule, it has a different structure than the one that's doing it. And so while the one that's doing whatever action is effective, there's no side effects. With the others, yeah, it's somewhat effective because they're trying to initiate the same thing from happening. But because of that, it just doesn't create as efficiently as the natural one, because that's the way our bodies were made to function. And it has to do with a number of, I won't go into them, but a number of factors with it. And out of that, you have a whole bunch of side effects. That's when you watch TV and you see them advertising something about a pharmaceutical product, and you got all these people with everything that's happening good and positive with them. And then by law, they have to list all the harmful things, the dangers, the warning on it and everything. And that is the biggest part of the advertisement. But while they're doing it, they got grandkids running, someone pedaling a bike, diving off into a pool to take your attention away. So you're looking at what's happening rather than listening to what they're saying, because they're quite toxic. And generally, most are not terribly effective if there's if they're a substitute for a natural ingredient. Sometimes synthetics are developed in and of themselves, but over half of them come from discoveries in natural medicine that they then try and make a synthetic molecule to do. So now I'm bouncing around going fast because of time. Don't know how much you have, but I want to give you some insight on this. So if we can do that, if we can clean up that plaque, what happens in the car engine? Gas and oxygen is spark, ignites it, and there's exhaust. You build up dirty oil, things like that, because the byproducts of that has to be gotten rid of, and you have to drain your oil once in a while. When was the last time you drained your oil in your stem cell? Well, you don't with it. But now with the H pill, we have the precursor support for the biological systems that are working, that we can put in there, and we can take that plaque buildup that's sticky and bonding proteinaceous structures together so they can't function the way they're supposed to be as organella, and remove it, and now they have all the movement and everything that they need. So glycation is what that's called, sticky plaque, just like it's the same exact principle. That's why you have plaque in your teeth, because bacteria are feeding on the sugar in your mouth, the glucose, and then it gets oxidized and it sticks to the teeth. Well, the same thing here. Glucose is in the stem cell, and then along comes the oxygen, and the telomeres I was talking about, they trigger the spark. They're the igniter. So not only do they regulate the rate of duplication, they also tell it when to fire. And so if it gets older, you're not firing as much. The duplication isn't as much, but the whole system is there to do it. What we need to do is overhaul it, so to speak, like you would the car. And that kind of thing can be done through biochemistry in many cases. But that's complex, takes a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of money, a great deal of work to do it. And normally researchers have tunnel vision. They look at something very narrow down there. And I was talking on the call this morning here in the United States, and I use as an illustration that scientists can be very brilliant, but common sense sometimes is not common among them. And then lateral vision, they will just see specific what they do, and they spend a lot of money in research, but don't take it to fruition unless somebody jumps on it, or somebody's trying to fund it, to get the rights to do something. If it is, they go. If it isn't, they leave it, and they're looking for their next grant to do that. That's the way they're working. Well, I was home and I was reading a magazine. It was a very technical magazine about human biology, biochemistry, microbiology. And so in it, the title of catch this for an interesting article, it's called "The Role of Thyroidoxin in the Refolding of Disulfide Proteins." What a statement. That's the title of the article. Would that make you want to read it? Well, it did me, but it wouldn't anybody else. And so I read through it, and I looked at it, and it was very positive, and it was for repairing the liver. And but it had other potentials that I could easily identify. So I took a look at it, and I got the names of the people that published, and they're kind of like, if you know the thing about the Maytag repairman advertisements, that sits there waiting for the phone call, because nothing ever seems to go wrong with the Maytag washer, was the theme with it. And so they publish these exhaustive studies, and they get promoted by what they publish, say. And if they're ever doing research, they have the right to publish. Well, if they have the right to publish, we have the right to see and we can take and use it to build the products, as long as we don't, and you can't patent a natural ingredient. So we have a lot of opportunity, but we got big pharma and the Ministry of Health, FDA, things like that, that don't want us to say what the ingredient can do unless you test it. Well, testing, that's 13 years, billion or $2. You want to wait 13 years? They've got a spare billion or two for each product that we have. See, so what they're doing, big pharma can afford it because they're making huge markups on this kind of thing. And as a consequence, it's a matter of economics with it. And then also big pharma takes a look at it that they don't, our average lifespan has been expanded greatly, but now it's actually decreasing. The reason it's expanded greatly is we've saved, half of the children used to die before they were to the age of 12. And 1 in 7 mothers and child were died at childbirth. And so those, and then they have the diseases, you know, yellow fever and scarlet fever and all of these types of typhus and typhoid fever, and those all now have been cured, smallpox, all of that. So at one time it was built to cure those very dangerous, highly contagious diseases. But nowadays it's not that way, because when they solve something for you, they lose a customer. So now most pharmaceutical research is going into treating the symptoms rather than addressing what's causing the condition. We're just the other way around. We want to address the condition, and then if we can handle that for you with the ingredients that are in our formulary to do it, and you keep using it, you're still our customer, because you don't want to go back to where you were. But providing just something to treat symptoms like pharmaceuticals, they got you forever, and you don't get better, and you usually get worse with that. So it shows you, these are a lot of things to say about our company and what we do and why we do it, but they're very, very valid, and we're the exception in the world. So I'll do a full circle back to the role of thyroidoxin in the refolding of disulfide proteins. And so I thought that's very interesting. So I got the names of the PhDs that were involved in it. I called one of them the next day, and I said, I read your article. He was quite surprised, because he's like the Maytag repairman. They do that study and nobody calls. I said, I read your study, and I said, it was very good. And of course he liked that, and we discussed it a little bit. And I said, I have a question for you though. He said, what's that? I said, a folded disulfide protein is a wrinkle. Now you're talking about doing scar tissue that is a folded disulfide protein too. It's 2 proteins with a sulfur bond, and it bends in. Instead of being functional, it just bends in. It's a simple way of saying it. So I said, that's what causes a wrinkle. So I'm asking, well, I can see that it works in the liver. Now, can we take that topically and put it on the skin? And can we remove a wrinkle? You know what he said to me? I don't know. He said that to me. I said, why don't you? Say, I'm a little naive at that time. He said, well, I didn't do the research. I only authored it and did it with Dr. So-and-so that did it. Let me ask him, and I'll get back to you. Here's PhD biochemist doing this massive research, and he doesn't know if it can remove a wrinkle. And he's going to ask somebody else. So they got back to me within a number of days on that thing. And they said to me, kind of in amazement, they said, well, yes, you're correct. It should remove a wrinkle. It'll break down that disulfide bond. And so the protein can unfold and become functional again and rebuild the connections that I had in skin. I said, great. Well, I thought it could. Then they said an amazing thing to me, and this is a good example. That's why I'm relating it to you. They said to me, we got a question for you. I said, what is it? It's all on the phone. They said, how did you figure that out? I said, how did I figure out? Yeah, how'd you figure that out? I said, I read your article. That was it. It was there right in front of their face. They just don't have the lateral thinking to see about those things. Thank goodness God has blessed me with that kind of a brain. I have that to do it. So I'm just like I'm speaking extemporaneously to you here. These things are in my mind. I have the ability to understand them, to keep great amounts of information, to correlate it back and and forth together. For what purpose? Well, really the purpose is for you. You're the most important thing. I mean, God created man on this earth, and earth was created for man, not man for the earth. And so you are God's greatest creation. And so in order to help you to do all of the things that you would like in your life, and having a long one is one of it, I have been given this ability that I will never retire and use or give up, because there's so much to offer, and it's going on, and it's getting better with age. So now we're taking a look at, we've moved into an area that is beyond antioxidant, beyond life extension. We've ended aging pretty well. Aging isn't a disease, so therefore you can really treat aging, because it's a symptomatic situation. It's all aging is decay of existing structures and degeneration of the ability of the cell or the system to function the way it should, because of wear and tear over a period of time. So most of the diseases you get, a lot of times they'll say they're age related. Well, yeah, they are. Things wear out over time. You get a lot of pollutants and things like that. And so all those things can be addressed, and we look at it to do it and say, all right, so what we can do right now, we've ended aging. Now the miracle molecule has come along, and there's 7 Nobel Prize winners saying NAD is the one that can make you live to a potential of 150. And here I'm saying, remember, I read the book or the article, The Role of Thyroid Auxin. But anyway, I said the thing, that can't be because of all the other factors that are there. So I started looking at the other factors. I figured out how to handle those. The glycation, the plaque, get rid of it. The lipofuscin, the cellular garbage, get rid of it. And then I realized, as I discussed, I'm going off other people's research. I'm not in the laboratory doing it. I'm reading what they've discovered that they haven't identified how to use it applicably in something. And because I have that ability between the science and the resources here, huge manufacturing plant, debt-free, I can make a formulation the same as anybody else can for a lot lesser price, because I have no shareholders, I have no stocks or anything like that are there. I have no interest, no bank payments, so I have a bigger margin. So rather than say, okay, my product costs less, I make more money, I bring perhaps up the cost, but I use the high concentrations of blends of the exotic ingredients with a synergistic effect where the sum of the product exceeds the total of the parts. And that's how we make it. So now with that, we have the age pill. The age pill has been changed 4 different times. I'm going to change it again here in a few months, getting some new technology that hasn't been there. And I tell people it's the greatest product in the history of human health. What else would be? They're even saying, the scientists are saying, you can send somebody to Mars on a mission now, because they normally get killed by solar radiation on that long of a mission, because there's no way of stopping it. Goes through the ship, through the spacesuits, everything. So an astronaut that goes up for a year, circling the earth, comes back about 5 years, biologically 5 years older. You go up to Mars, everybody goes up, nobody comes back because they've aged rapidly. You put 3 or 5 year mission on Mars and you're toast. So anyway, with that, they say the reason it works is it can take mutagenic damage from solar radiation, and it repairs it about as fast as it happens. Now, think about that for a second. You have all that going on in your body right now. You have all that oxidation. You have a lot of different types of carcinogens that enter your body. Women have huge amounts. They have about 4 times more in their body than a man does, because they use all these personal care products that have ingredients that have been improved but never tested. And if they're tested, they were grandfathered in years ago. So no one's going to change it. Look at all the lawsuits on talc right now, into the billions of dollars of judgments against the company, and yet they're still making baby powder out of it. Why? Because it was grandfathered in 1967. And then because there were so many products, they said, we can't test them. Everything up to this point is automatically approved, including cigarettes. And then 1987, they realized they still hadn't approved a product. Just so many, and changes come. So they grandfathered everything in there. So these products can legally be used. So now the companies take a look at it and they say, well, you know what? We're making so much money, even if we lose it with the lawsuits, we're making a tremendous amount of profit on it. So we're going to keep manufacturing it. Isn't that crazy? But that's the way that it is. And just to give you another example real quick, and Kurt cut me off whenever I get too long in this thing, but over in Europe, just here a couple of years ago, the European Union was trying to get rid of cigarettes. And over there, they put warning, cigarettes cause cancer. And it's right on the packs and all that other kind of stuff. But they wanted to ban them. And the Tobacco Association went over, a consortium of the companies, and they said to the Ministry of Health in the EU, you don't want to get rid of cigarettes. And the people say, well, heart attacks and cancer and all of the liver diseases and eyes and brain degeneration, this all comes from cancer. And here was their answer. They said, well, you know what? That helps, that shortens the lifespan of the average person. So if you think about it, they get to retirement age, the longer they live, the more money it costs you. So if they smoke, then they'll have a shorter lifespan and you'll be easier to operate within the revenues that you have. And you know what? That sold them. They've said, because they thought they don't want a big retirement role. They don't want big medical bills or those kinds of things going on. And so that's the true story. Isn't that amazing? But this kind of world, you find a lot of those things that have got all these hidden factors in you don't even think about. So here we come along, we have the age belt, single greatest product in the history of human health. Then along comes, actually before was telomeres. And they found out that the longer the telomeres were, that's the tips on your finger, like on the tips on the chromosome, the longer they are, the faster you duplicate, the more it ignites, the longer you live in the potential with it. And so 3 Nobel people got the Nobel Prize for that discovery and long telomeres, and they're saying, well, there's the immortality pill right there. Well, how about NAD? They're saying that's the immortality. Which is it? Well, neither one, but they're both contributing to it. So they are ones that are into great amounts of life extension. So now we're into the point of we've hit ending aging pretty well with that, and we'll work more on some things to give you more information that way. But we can end aging, and then you turn around and you say, okay, but now what we can do is we can greatly extend your lifespan with it and improve your health. And that was pretty sensational. And then the thing came out and said, we can, if we end aging and improve your health and do this, you are going to have an effect that to where you can literally, these biological indicators can come back to where you're young again. So this decline you're on comes up with that kind of thing. So now a third discovery has been made, and we're at the forefront of this thing. And when Kurt goes to Australia, he's going to, and remember, this Kurt goes on his own nickel. He goes there to support his downline because he really cares. And he's one of our very top leaders in the company because of all the dedication and support he does in building his business, taking care of his, not just those in his organization. He's smart enough to realize that if everyone works with anyone that needs it in meetings and stuff like that, the total sum of that is going to be greater for the people in it and out of it. So he does that, and he's going down there to Australia here next week, New Zealand, with it. And he is going to be the first one to launch what now I think has replaced, it hasn't replaced the age pill. The age pill now will become the second greatest discovery in the history of human health. The third, I would say, would be telomeres. And this fourth component is the one that is going to work on senolytics. And you'll learn what that is when he's down there too. And that, the three of them together, they're not going to make you feel younger, live longer, be healthier, and that's it. It's going to do all of that, but it's going to do it at a much greater magnitude. But now what we're going to do, it's almost like the Lazarus theory coming back with this thing. We're bringing in this third discovery that's here, and the most prestigious research organization in the world, medical research, has discovered it. But I discovered it many, many years ago with my previous company, like 25 years ago. But I didn't know that it would do the other things that it does. And so that's quite a story, and I won't waste a lot of time on that. But in reality, I was using it, and I found out that people that, women that took a lot of limonene had a significant reduction in breast cancer. Not just prevented, but it was really going away. So I took a look at it and I found, well, what's the active? Limonene comes from the peel of citrus. And so it's very bitter tasting. It's an oil. So I looked at that and I found the active ingredient that was in that was doing it. So I obtained the active ingredient and made a product on it. But I couldn't say anything about it because you couldn't dress it for cancer. I just said it helps women to feel better. And we hope people could find the science, but there's no internet with this thing. So it went on and it sold okay. Some people had some remarkable testimonies, but you have to watch what you say because the government's there and they want to get you. And they want to get us and get us through you, vice versa, because they're supporting big pharma. 40% of all the price of pharmaceuticals, for example, goes from the drug companies to the Ministry of Health. And so as a consequence, they want to protect that because that's their function. And here you are again. You're just chopped liver being used by these institutions for it, but not with us. We're going the other way. So now, if we do this third component, now we have not just ended aging, we haven't extended the lifespan. What we're going to do is look, we can now look at a lifespan that in theory, and I have to say in theory, may not end. Or if it does, it will be a great time in the future. So now our philosophy is we have got this other product come in and we go from this path we're going down and suddenly we get on the road to immortality and we're flying down it with this array of 4 products we're going to have to show you. And Doc Fizz will be there. He understands it thoroughly. He's of course got a good knack for that too and background experience. And I've been passing on all these things so he can take them and put them in a usable format. The work and everything has, PowerPoints, everything's his. He's taking it, doing it. And I mean, that's dedication. So you need to tell him a big thank you when he comes out there to do that because he's put a massive amount in this. Some days it about drives me crazy trying to get information, but you know, he's doing it for a good purpose, you. And so as a result, we're going to have you flying down the road to immortality. And what is the goal of that? We're going to take you and to the point of where you're going to live for great lengths of time at a very young age. That's the purpose, what we're doing. So now there's a couple of things that come in that are very significant at first, and it's how young you start to take it. And of course, then the body isn't going to go start that decline. We can keep it and going. But if you're older, then we get them back to where you're younger, but you don't have the mass to do it with. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sweep on the other end and we're going to empower it with the life force energy. This is something else that we're going to talk about, how to do it, how to recharge your cells and to give you the energy of the sun in every cell in your body in tremendous amounts. So you come up, if you know the term homeostasis, that means optimal operating efficiency. And we believe that we can do that with stem cells. Now, stem cells have the ability to live forever. We know they can because a cancer cell is a mutated stem cell. And what happens, the DNA gets broken and now it's trying to repair it. But because of the way it's broken, it can't repair, but it's producing all of these biological factors. And so an NAD, and it's just, it's driving the activities to repair, to regenerate. Telomeres are staying long because it's producing lots of telomerase, which is the enzyme that makes it. And all of that happens. So they have cancer cells in petri dishes from the 1800s. They just keep in there and they feed them and they grow and they duplicate. And they're stem cells, mutated, damaged ones. So now what you do, if you start young, you're going to handle those better. And if you're older, now we have the way to bring this whole stage or physical part of your life back into play to add to what is deteriorated, but it's up at 100%. This are close to it. This other will be up at it. And so now you have a chance of, I don't know what, in terms, because much of this is so new. It's within the last 2, 3, 4 years that it's come out, and it's so highly advanced. So the road to immortality is going to mean different things to different people. But some of the most prominent people in the area, if you want to call it life extension, I call it youth regeneration, ending aging, youthful regeneration. And the body has the ability to heal, maintain, and repair itself if you give it the proper nutrients and get rid of the toxins and waste. Now that sounds pretty clear after what I've told you here today, but that saying was coined 5,000 years ago and was in the Yellow Emperor's book with it, because what happened is the Chinese realized just that the body had the ability, and they had people. We had a photograph in one of our PowerPoints of a Chinese herbalist, pharmacist, a physician, and he lived to be about I think it was 246 years, and he went back through centuries. And the records in China, they celebrated his 150th birthday, and then they celebrated his 200th birthday. Can you imagine that? Then he went on another 40 years. Now, I don't know why some of the things he didn't share it, but he went through about 20 wives in that process. But you would think he'd, now I won't go there with that, but nonetheless, with that, he lived that long. Now he looked like he'd lived that long, but he was still viable right at the end. And I saw pictures of him in the 1930s when he was around and active, and the whole hot Chinese historical record said, I believe it. I took some of the formulations he's using, and that's where we have today. We have Eternity, we have TSX, we have the H pill, we have all of these types of products going, and now the next stage with it, which I think is a complete package. So to put it in practical terms, Aubrey de Grey, who's the world's leading authority, and some other people, but I've had a bunch of the top life extension scientists, if you will, that are into NAD, youth regeneration, stem cell reactivation, activation, maintenance, all of those things here to see me in the office, and even some that come up, stayed in my home. We had a conference there, and they stayed in my home at that time for the conference. The reason why is we're on the same mission, but they find little bits and pieces. Hey, and what's the little bits and pieces? I can make a quilt out of that. And that's what I'm doing with finding these things out. And that's why the World Stem Cell Congress asked me to be the keynote speaker this year. And I was going to go to it, but I had made a commitment that Pennsylvania were going to have 1,000 distributors on the same date. And when I committed to do it for the World Stem, I didn't check my calendar. So I've had to cancel with them. But I told them, I said, they asked me to be on the advisory board and the keynote speaker of the World Stem Cell Congress. Wow, that's very prestigious. Now, I don't do things so much for egotistical, but it gives us a great advantage, credibility for other people. We can say the founder is the keynote speaker of the World Stem Cell Congress. He sits on the advisory board, but that's not the only one. I got 2 or 3 others after me, but they want you because they want to use your credentials. They want to use your influence and things like that. But why did they ask me? This has thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of scientists that are there. They asked me to be the keynote speaker. Why? Because scientists are talking about this and that and there's other thing specific. And what I've done is I put it together and I have the whole complete package so that people, if I flip back to these research scientists that I've been working with and that are prominent in the field, such as Aubrey de Grey, he says he thinks the person that is born today will live between 200 and 300 years. But he thinks by the time before we get that, we'll have people being born that will be living 500, 800 years. And then the potential of immortality is there. Now that seems like a lot to think about, isn't it? How could that possibly be? And I believe in God, and I think there'll be a second coming and these things will get too big for this earth. but nonetheless, we're here to live in. We're here to enjoy life and have our bodies and all these great experiences and families and all of that. So I'm 100% behind that. I'm down off the farm when it comes to values and people and things like that. I really believe in it. And so with that kind of thing, it isn't so inconceivable. In fact, I'll tell you some of the things that happened just recently that they've done. They've been researching organisms, and they found some organisms. One of them is the example is a little jellyfish that's in the ocean, and it's between 1.5 and 2 billion years old. And it's not just one, there's a lot of them down there, and they never die. And it doesn't matter what happens, the climate and things like that. They'll even go into like cysts to protect themselves and during tough times and come back. The only way they die is if they get eaten or some kind of an accident that kills them. They are literally immortal. And there's a number of organisms within the sea that are 500,000 billion years old. And now just this past month, they isolated one that they think may have been here right around the creation of the earth to do it. Now, this whole earth is created from natural processes, and it goes on, and they work together, checks and balances, ups and downs, a world of opposites, all of that going on. We know that and accept that. So it's there's been an evolution come forth on the earth, and people talk about evolution. Well, and they say, oh, some if they're heavy in the religion, and which I am, I'm a very religious person, but I try to be practical. And they say, oh, you can't talk about evolution. I said, well, you sure can. It's happening around you right now. In fact, is women in the last 3 generations of from the grandmother to the daughter to the granddaughter have evolved and mutated in those 3 generations more so than women have going back over 2,000 years. So are we not evolving? You are not the person that your ancestors were because of so much mutagenic damage that's happening, especially in today's society. So we are changing, and that DNA that gets altered gets transferred on, and whether they're good or bad properties, they get transferred onto our offspring, which may get remutated and transferred on and on. So what we're trying to do is we want to be everything we can. We want to stay there. We've got these products to do that kind of thing. And that's what we're working on doing. So immortality, are you going to get there? No, I don't think so. But we're going to put you far and fast down that road to greatly extend your lifespan, to significantly improve your health and regeneration. And we can do it now with it. My estimation for most people that are here, and I think this is an estimate. You have to watch what you say because governments like to make you prove what you're talking about with study. You've done studies on it. Where's your evidence? Because they're trying to suppress you for big pharma and companies like us that are into nutraceuticals. But nonetheless, you're going to come along and say, well, I'm 40 years old. And if the average age, let's say it was 80, so that means your half-life. And so you'll live to be 80. What I think we can do, this is my estimation, my opinion, based upon things I've seen, learned, and believe, that the 40-year-old should live double their lifespan, at least. That's a conservative thing for me to think if they do it right. So what is that talking? 80, they go to 120. Well, what happens when they go to 120? I'm coining the phrase right now, 120 is the new 60. And that's because the bodies will be like they are 60. So the potential to live to be 120 for a 40-year-old, I think is very good. And for someone that is very young with that type of thing, hey, they're on the thing to go to 200, 300 years with the technologies that we have, I believe, right now. But there's going to be more and more advancements coming out to make these kinds of things happen. So that's the mission that we're on, to do those kinds of things. We're going where no one has gone before. We are truly the Trekkies of MLM. We're seeing new worlds, going new places, doing new things that have never been done or seen before. And so as a consequence, well, like the World Stem Cell Congress come back and they said, will you be our keynote speaker next year then? Can't do it this year. I said, sure. I don't want to take the time, the presentations, there's a lot, but I'm going to do it because it helps the overall company so they can promote better and have more successful lives and business. And that's what, in a way, what Doc's doing when he comes down into Australia to do his tour. He's coming down for that same mission himself. This is a beautiful company and a beautiful concept, because rather than competing against each other, even if they're in different lines, we are really competing with each other. And that synergistic energy, you need to perpetuate it both in your downlines and outside them, because overall, we're all going to be much better in doing it, and we're dedicating our lives to it. So that's really where we're at, but it isn't. Because there's so many other things to work on. I mean, I can futurize with you right now, but I can promise you this, and I'm going to do it again first for the Australians, because they are in the most remote part of the world. Huge times to get shipping down and this kind of thing. So we're building big inventories and getting through the control issues, reprogramming new software to take us in, because the whole world has changed. It's been traditional marketing, and the future is for innovative, creative marketing. So we realized our software couldn't do it, take us where we want to with all the advanced things that we have in products, in formulation, in manufacturing, in logistics, in promotion. And so we're putting big changes in there. Some of you have suffered through them, but they're a lot different than it was a year ago. And you got to bite the bullet sometime. Better now than later when we're bigger, because we get through all of this and we're about through it. Then we can really go on. So I'm going to introduce a product, and I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you it anyway. Sometimes the devil makes me do things. So, but here's the point. How many of you women like old, wrinkled, crepey skin with eye bags and things like that? Of course, none of you do. If you look in the mirror and your face looks like a Rand McNally road map, you're not very happy, are you? So you put all these expensive lotions and things like this on it, and the only good it does is it really makes you feel better about yourself because you're doing something with it. That isn't my statement. That's a statement of a leading researcher in the world who was analyzing when one of the big detergent companies bought out one of the gigantic cosmetic companies, and said they're going to be in a shock because they have laundry soap that cleans laundry and they have dishwashing soap that cleans dishes, but as far as skincare and cosmetic products go, it's psychic rather than rational. Catch that? That's what he said. And it was published in an industry magazine. And he said, the primary benefit to the consumer using these products is how it makes her feel about herself. Well, how much money do you think many women have invested in their face, in their appearance, those kinds of things? And they have, and unfortunately, it's because if it ain't in the bottle, it's not going to work on your skin. And I just analyzed one of the top well, this has actually been a couple years ago, but saw the one of the green, I believe, sold for, at that time, about $340 for 1 ounce for a month's supply. And they happened to print their formula. And I looked at that thing and I thought, I'm going to cost that out. It costs 87 cents to make. And they were selling it for 340 bucks. You ought to see what our costs are. So we have to do a lot of things to get this immense amount of power in it and a very reasonable price for you. And that's what we're doing. So here I'm going to bring a product, and it's going to flip on and it's going to flip off. Now, what does that mean? Well, what we're going to do is when your skin gets damaged from, most of it comes from light, but it's also, there's a lot of pollution in the air with that goes in, and your skin doesn't take air in from your lungs, it takes it directly through the skin. So that's why they have cadaver skin. If a person dies, it can come in a few days later and the skin is still alive and growing because it has oxygen from the outside. And if it has enough nutrients and material, it will grow. In fact, as a man, if they're preparing him for a funeral after he's died, they have to shave him before he goes in because his hair is grown, because it's working on the same principle. Well, all that being said, if you take and you realize that all these things are oxidizing, and when that happens, you start getting this decay and degeneration, and then it gets damaged. And so the skin, in a protective nature, takes this damaged skin and it pulls it in to protect it. Now it's on the inside, so the environment can't damage it further. So wrinkles are a defense for your skin aging. Eye bags are the same. There's a number of factors and things like that happen. So why they pull in is there is an age switch that gets turned on, so that skin that's getting so badly damaged gradually just starts going in more and more and more because the age switch has been turned on. Well, okay, we're going to come in and turn it off with a product, and then we're going to go around and okay, if there's an aging gene, we're talking epigenetics. Is there not a on gene to make skin grow? And the answer is right. So we're going to turn off the aging gene and turn on the youthful regenerating gene. So it's a turn off, turn on type program, and it will revolutionize the world of skincare. I shouldn't even be telling you because this is so dynamic and I don't want to put anybody else on it. Is it the greatest product in the history of human health? No, that's going to be that new product introduced, and it's going to be the age bill. Is this going to be the greatest product ever introduced in the history of human skin, personal care? Absolutely. It will flatten everything out there. You're going to see visible changes in about 14 days. Within 28, 30 days, they're going to be absolutely undeniable. And when you look at it 3 months, 6 months down the road, you'll say, holy cow, it has really worked. It works that fast that you see it. So that's some of the futuristic things. Got gray hair? I'm working on a hair conditioner. You rub it into your hair, work it down into the roots, let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes while you're in the shower. What it will do is go down into the roots of it, into the hair follicle, and start the regeneration of pigment. It will neutralize the factors that cause pigment to bleach out, which is hydrogen peroxide. And so we'll go down and neutralize those factors, and then it will have the components that will turn on the melanocytes that build the pigment in it, and the hair will start coming from the roots. Instead of being gray, now that'll be darker and back to your natural color. And that's in hair care. Now, I'm wasting a lot of time with this kind of thing, but the reason I'm doing it, and I'm going to end up right now, but the reason I'm doing it is because it can be done. And the demand for it is enormous, isn't it? Have you ever heard anything like this? Get on somebody else's program, another network marketing company or a nutraceutical company that's selling these things. You'll never hear this kind of thing because they can't spend that kind of money. They haven't got the abilities or the desire or the economic motivation to do it. They want to build a cheap product where they overhype and underperforms. I want to build a product where our hype is great and our performance exceeds it. And that's what we're after. So now to bring the whole thing back to an end, these products are great, aren't they? The compensation plan is really it's simple, it's easy, it's dynamic, and it's helped you to make money fast. The most important aspect, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, is this wealth builder bonus. Boy, you bring somebody in, you can make a lot of money with that. I've heard a couple of people saying not to do it. That is absolute foolishness, because this wealth builder bonus really cranks out some big checks with it. But then you go down through this generation, and the percentages and the amounts of bonus volume it pays on, commissionable volume, is so much greater than other companies that the distributor you get in for the products they use and that which they retail, they'll be worth 2 or 3 times as much as one in another company. And then when it's over, people will stay if the performance is there, and if they're not, they become a Zango, they become a Mona V. These kinds of things that happen, and they're gone. We're not going. Well, we are. We're going up. So you need to get yourself and start moving out fast and hard. If you can't move out fast, move. Just get moving out. And that's the whole thing, because you're in the right momentum. If you're not, you're standing around going backwards. You're going backwards fast. This whole thing's going to change, as Doc was talking about, in the next decade. The world will change from traditional marketing to innovative creative marketing, and many of these jobs will be gone forever, from robotics and automation and artificial intelligence. The total wealth of the world is going to grow double in this next 10 years. From the history of time till now, it's now going to double in 10 years. So you have a great deal of opportunity. But when you're getting to the end of that, it's just like in China, they just replaced 80,000 workers with robots. Why did they do that? The Chinese workers were making $5 a day, and robots can do it a lot cheaper. And they don't take vacations, and they don't need health care, and they can work double, triple shifts if they need to with it. So they take a look at it from a businessman. These people are expendable. That's what's coming with you too, or many of you and us with this, but it doesn't have to be, because you have got the track to run on. You can run hard and you can run fast, but if you don't have a track to run in that can lead you to success, you end up just spinning your wheels. So what we're doing is we got the track to run off, so you can make a great deal of money with the most sensational products, and we'll make you a lot happier, we think. And you can make yourself happy, but we're going to give you the tools to do it. We're going to make you incredibly healthy, and many of you prosperous, and quite a number are going to become wealthy from this. Those that will do it, those that are willing to pay the price now, can have later what others cannot. But when you hit this 10-year mark, the opportunities are going to really be going down. So you want to work very hard for the next 10 years to get yourself built up with this to where you're able to have a big force. And that's our new plan. Our 2020 decade plan is you get 20 people, distributors this year, active ones. And if you have 20, if you can develop 20 this year, then the following year, your income could be 6 digits. We think that's very possible for somebody to do it, but that's kind of it's not the fast track. What you should really do is put everything you can into it now, especially first where you put more energy in it, because the opportunity is the greatest with it. So my suggestion to you is get 20 new distributors in 90 days, 3 months, and then maintain them. So those 20, if somebody falls off and they're not doing it, replace them with somebody else and help them to build their downlines. And that's how you get paid. So you get what you want by helping others to get their one. So if you got 20 good ones you're working for, and that multiplication keeps taking rate at certain percentages, you'll get down there. And many of you people could be looking at $10,000, $15,000 a month checks. And that's well, I can't make income claims, so I just say that's in theory. But if you did that in a year for the next year, what do you think the following year would be if that exponential growth continues? It's going to be literally obscene, literally obscene. I don't like saying it that way, because money is very good for getting things done, doing a lot of good. It's the love of money is the problem. But if you should love money for what good it can do to help you and other people. So I'm really for that. So here we have the opportunity, sensational products, sensational compensation plan, really sensational literature and support things that we're developing with you. And then we have the leadership here to make all of this run, not just in the company, but out there in the field like you that are on this call. And what have you got ahead of you? You've got virtually, if you can conceive this, you have virtually the future that you may never have dreamed you'd even have. Or if you dreamed about it, it was a wild dream, which you thought may never can happen. And for those of you, especially some of you in Australia, I mean, geez, we had, I don't know how many people made $1 million down in Australia, but there were 1,000 or so that did. And we're going to make hundreds of thousands of people millionaires, I believe. That's my prediction. But that's not the goal of it. That's a reflection of all the other people who are living much higher, much healthier, and have much more money, have their dream home, have a new car, take the vacations they want, be able to pay for the kids' education and health care and all that. That all lies with us. And we are the trekkies that are doing it, where I don't think any other company has this even close to this kind of opportunity. You may see something come in, go up. What goes up comes down. What we do, we're going up with power. We're going up with a mission. It works. We know how to do it. I've done it for 30 years. We have this magnificent setup to do it with, and it's all for you. So everything you do, here I am tonight. Kurt's here tonight. Of course, you're here. And I could have had somebody else come. I don't want somebody else. I do, because we reach more people. But I'm thrilled to be here to help you, because I believe in you. I want to help you. I want to be a catalyst. I want to have the track for you to run on, where you can achieve the kind of success, health, wealth, happiness that you truly deserve. And that's what Sisel's about. And that's our ultimate mission that we're doing. So I thank you for your time. And I guess I've gone on for a lot of it. But I appreciate the chance to chat with you, and we wish Doc good luck on his new venture down under. It's not a new venture, it's an ongoing venture with him, and I'm sure he'll do a great job. So back to you, Doc.
Hey, Tom, turn your head sideways once so everybody can see your skin. Have you been using that new product that you haven't put out in the market yet?
Would I do something like that?
Yes.
You bet your bippy.
Wow, I was looking at your skin while you were talking, and I'm thinking, holy cow. That's, I mean, you look 20 years younger since the last time I saw you, and that was just last fall. Yeah, it's really amazing what it does. And then of course you're doing it internally too, because got the age pill, got TSX, Super Omega Plus, Brain Vitality, Triangle of Life, all of those things come. Energy for him, that makes a big factor in men, even a bigger factor in women in their formulation. So these things, I take a lot of products. Why? Because I got a lot of parts of my body, and I want them to all remain the way that they are, and specific things, combinations do this, combinations do that, combinations do the other. And so I'm putting it all there, and you'll have to pick and choose what you can use. But the one thing about it, you say, we have some people come in and say, well, I can't afford to buy the products. Why can't you? Well, it just costs too much for what I'm earning. Well, how about going out and getting some other people to do it and get your products paid for free? That's your number one goal, where you should be. And you do for that, then you're going to crank on. Your next goal is going to be $500, then $1,000, then $2,000, then $5,000, and goodbye. You're in orbit. You're going to really be going. But everything starts at the beginning, and this is the beginning of the 10-year decade, the decade of the greatest decade for achievement, growth, wealth that has ever happened in the history of the world. And the end of it, we're going to get smacked if we don't do it right. Even people going to universities are going to get their degrees and things that are worthless. They're doing it right now. They came out with massive student debt. There's no jobs for them. So, and those jobs that are there now are going to pretty well go away, be automated away. And the new jobs are going to be innovative, creative, computer science, things like this, artificial intelligence, especially. I won't go into all those things because they're pretty exhaustive, but I do understand a lot about them. And it's a driving force for me doing that. Let me throw just one more little pinch at you. This coronavirus has come up in 4 days, and it is a dangerous sucker. We've got 3 products that are really good for it: Influence, Body Shield, and Avenger. And the coronavirus is like a SARS virus, and it causes viral pneumonia and almost an untreatable type in it. And it is growing so fast. I'll just give you a statistic. 4 days ago, 3 people had died. Yesterday, 26 more people had died, and 830 more were introduced into the hospital just yesterday. And so China, it started from China, and listen to this. Viruses start from animal sources, and almost every flu comes out of China because they have big poultry, lots of ducks, lots of chickens, and these types of viruses mutate. They're retroviruses. So the flu virus you had last year, it's gone, and it's retroed into a new structure, see, that replaces it. And your vaccine, if you're using a vaccine, what worked last year won't work this year. In fact, it's the ones they've had out here this year, that only works in about, I think Doc could know that statistic pretty well too. It works on about 10% of the people that have the flu. They got it wrong, or didn't get it right enough. They didn't get it wrong, they didn't get it all wrong, but they didn't get it very right. And so here you have this retrovirus that's coming out, and it is very dangerous and highly contagious. So much so that China 3 days ago started quarantining a city. Then the next day, this is just a day ago, they quarantined a city much bigger than New York. New York has 8 million, and this has 11 million people, and they quarantined the whole city. And then just as of today, they quarantined that, so they had 11 million people they're quarantined. Now there's 44 million under quarantine with us. That is greater than the total population of the top 26 countries or cities
in the United States, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, all of those countries, or those cities, that's the number it has exploded to in 4 days, and it's coming our way. And now we've got in 3 different times, and the World Health Organization said, we're scared. We're really scared because it's so dangerous and it's so highly contagious. Well, if we understand things, sure, we're not going to make it. They're going to try and make a vaccine, of course, that kind of thing. But it affects everyone. This is not one that's just going to get the older people, because this SARS type virus goes after kids and babies and young adults and everyone. If you're older and you're more deteriorated, you're going to be more vulnerable. The ones that are young, healthy, are very vulnerable too. And it just deposits in the lung. So you can get very sick, but it's building viral pneumonia in the lung with it. So you have 3 things to do. There are certain types of compounds that are very good to support the body's system to fight viruses. There you have influence, okay? Then we have a crazy one with Body Shield, but what it's been found to do is it has the ability on these, you look at my picture on Facebook and you can see, not my picture, but anyway, you can see a virus I have there. And they have all of these like little rods on it. They have suction cups on the end. And the reason they do is no matter how they go, they hit a cell, one of those is going to hit. And it's a sucker cup on it, and it holds in there. And now that virus, through that, will transfer its DNA down into the cell. And when that happens, then it will cause an explosion of virus cells to grow within that cell that's yours. And then it will rupture the cell and it will go everywhere, and they'll do the same. They'll be attaching and transferring. And that's why it's so deadly. It works so quick. And doesn't matter. It's like a ball. No matter how you rotate it, it has all these suckers on it. It's going to hit somewhere with it. But what they found out and this comes from Russia and Chernobyl, is they're working on something to neutralize radiation. Maybe a lot of you are interested in that. We get a lot from sitting here in front of the computer and that. But neutralizing radiation means radioactive materials are hungry for electrons, and they steal it from normal tissues. That's why it breaks down. But organic fulvic acid is loaded with excessive electrons, and it will satisfy the balance of radiation. And so that's what they cleaned up Chernobyl with, and they gave it to animals and people and everything else, sprayed everything down with it. Well, that's one of the good points. But the other thing they found with it, that viral infections were almost non-existent. And the reason why they surmise, and we do, is those little sucker cups that are there. Fulvic acid is so small, it's like peppering it. And you can get, if you have enough of it in your body, it attaches, because it's an organic fulvic acid that is meant to attach to components like nutrients, so it will attach them. So suddenly, instead of having that sucker to grab, it'll be like there's been a piece of paper or a membrane put between it, so it can't adhere to the cell. That's how Body Shield works. And then the other thing is, you have quite a varieties that come even out of a viral infection. You get a lot of bacterial infections, fungus, mold, all those types of things. But with that, then here comes Avenger. Avenger is massive power to support the immune system in its specific and non-specific immune functions that it does. It means generally and very specific. And it works for gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria, all of this. So it's very powerful to support the immense power of your immune system. It influences bringing it out, putting things in that are they're keeping systems satisfied so they don't deteriorate. They're not vulnerable. So that's the 3 products you have. This thing is coming so fast. In fact, it's here in the United States now. Everybody that gets, and not just in Australia, just took it up, and Europe is taking it up. Everyone gets on a plane that's coming from any of destinations. If they've been in China, or if they're coming from a company where there's a lot of Chinese, everybody gets checked. They have people in moon suits checking you to see if you've got it. We've already got 3 in the United States that got through, and one slipped through. She knew she had it, and she took something to lower her temperature. So when she got checked, she was cold, and they let her through, and then she went to the hospital with it. So what I'm saying is, this thing is so dangerous. And here's the thing: if this, you don't find this revolting, this all started from where I was talking in China in the animal world. And see, something like ducks, they have so much are in the mud, and they even eat the feed over there too. So you have all of that contamination and mutation. Chickens, there's so many of them with it, and they're all kind of viral things. Chicken, swine virus, you heard that, the swine flu comes out from hogs and all this. This is different. This one is more potent, more toxic. It is a retro, but it has been transferred. They just mapped the genome back just within days because they're trying to find out how to solve it. And they found out the genome, and they found the city it went to. They found the center in the city, which was a big market where they had a massive market, wholesale, retail, all kinds of things in there. And they found out it happened right there in one specific place. And it was where they kept a lot of poisonous snakes. In China, they eat them, they're a delicacy. So, not all, but they have them. So they have these big pits of poisonous snakes that they're selling for people to eat because of the Chinese psychology on that type of thing. And what is happening is vampire bats that are there are coming down and sucking the blood out of these snakes at night, and they're transferring a virus into them. It retros within the snake. Then in the snake, it will turn around and retro and into a human being, and we have the coronavirus. So talk about revolting. Vampire bats to poisonous snakes to human beings, that's where that virus comes from. And it is a potent son of a gun. So do you want to wait till it's happened? If you take influence, yeah, you can, it can support recovery for you to be 50% faster, 50% shorter, 50% less intense, but you still got it. And if it's viral pneumonia, if you want to take a chance, you can go on those things right now. You can bulletproof your, I think, in my opinion, you can bulletproof yourself against it. But this is, it'll go as flus do. But right now, this thing is raging like none I've ever seen with it. And you've got the tools right there. And why shouldn't you be using them? We've got them. Nobody else has got it like that. Anyway, back to you, Doc. Sorry, I get going on this stuff and I go on and on and on.
Thanks for sharing that, Tom. You know, that's really, really important stuff. I mean, it's top of the mind awareness. It's right in the news. I mean, I'll be traveling next week. How many airports will I be in? Thank God I've got all those products right here. They're already almost packed into my bag, and I'll be traveling along with everything else, you know, with the Fucoid and everything. I wish I had some of that wrinkle cream. Why don't I ever get to try some of this stuff, you know?
You'll be last to get it, I can assure you of that.
I'm super excited about going down there and sharing all this information with people. And Tom, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know it's dang near, you know, dinner time down there for you. And we got done listening to Milo and Liesel about 2 hours before you jumped on here with us. And so we got a lot of information to kind of process in our head today. So thank you again. Andrea or Katie, do you have any questions for Tom? Do you have anything that you'd like to ask before he goes off?
All good. That was fantastic. Thank you, Tom. That was wonderful.
You're certainly welcome. I hope I haven't given you overload. It's all in my mind, and I just spew it out and get going somewhere. But there's a continuity to it, and I hope that I won't overpower people with it.
Not at all.
We love it.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Say hi to the family for me. Enjoy your kids and your grandkids, and I'll see you sometime this spring.
All right, and get your rear in gear. Go out and sign somebody this weekend or two. Start on your 20 right now. It's time to do it. There'll never be a better time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of the call. All right, bye-bye.